I shouldn't have opened that door. It was one of those moments you can't take back. The kind that lives under your skin no matter how much you try to shake it off. I'd only been living here a few weeks, still trying to figure out where I fit in her house. Or maybe it wasn't really her house, it was ours now. At least that's what everyone kept saying. I don't know what I expected when I pushed open the bathroom door. Steam curled out, clinging to the hallway wallpaper, the faint scent of jasmine shampoo in the air. And then her. She froze when she saw me, towel clutched to her chest, droplets tracing the line of her collarbone. My throat locked up. "God, you didn't knock," she managed, voice low, almost steady. Almost. I thought. I stopped. I couldn't even finish. What excuse could cover the fact that I didn't want to leave? That even after I realized my mistake, I still stood there, stupid and caught in the sight of her. She pulled the towel tighter, eyes narrowing, though not with the sharpness I expected. More like she was testing me. Or herself. "Close the door," she whispered. But I didn't. Not right away. Silence stretched, thick with the sound of dripping water and my pulse hammering too loud. I finally turned, muttering something that wasn't an apology. More a breath I couldn't hold in anymore. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, palms damp. I told myself it was nothing, just an accident. But the image of her standing there, so close, so real, stuck like a burn. The rest of the day I couldn't meet her eyes. She moved around the house as though nothing had happened, humming faintly while folding laundry, calling out if I wanted tea. Her calm only made me restless. I kept catching myself watching her hands as she poured, the way her hair slipped from its clip when she bent over the counter. At dinner, she finally looked at me, just a glance. Quick, unreadable. But I felt it. Like she'd reached across the table and brushed her fingers against mine. I stabbed at my food. About earlier. She cut me off with a shake of her head. "Don't." One word. Firm, quiet. Her robe shifted just enough for the fabric to slide against her collarbone. And then she stepped closer. Not touching. Not yet. But close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Go back to bed," she murmured, but her eyes stayed locked on mine, and I knew neither of us would sleep. The air between us had changed after that night in the kitchen. I told myself it was nothing, that I'd imagined the way she looked at me, the way her words lingered long after she'd gone back upstairs. But I couldn't stop noticing her. The way she tied her robe a little tighter when I walked into the room. The way her laugh caught, soft and low, when she poured my coffee in the morning. The way she never mentioned the bathroom, though her silence carried more weight than any lecture could. I knew I was crossing lines just thinking about it. She wasn't just some woman. I lived here now. And she had history, years written into the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the kind that only came from a life I hadn't lived yet. One evening, I found her in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the couch with papers scattered everywhere. Bills, maybe. Letters. Something that had her pressing a hand to her forehead, exhaling like the weight of it might break her. "You okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. She looked up quickly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Yes. Just long day." Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled when she gathered the papers. I shouldn't have stared, but I did at the tremor, at the way her shoulders curled in like she didn't want to be seen. "Want me to help?" I asked. My voice cracked a little, betraying more than I wanted. A pause. Then, almost too quietly, "You shouldn't. That should have been the end of it." But I sat down on the arm of the couch anyway, close enough that our knees nearly brushed. She didn't move away. The silence pressed down, heavy and thick, broken only by the shuffle of papers and the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I couldn't look at her without wanting more than I should. Finally, she let out a short, breathless laugh. "You know, you remind me of him. When he was your age." I froze. She rarely mentioned my father. He used to sit just like that, she added, her eyes flicking to where my hand rested on the cushion. Quiet, but restless. I swallowed hard, unsure what to say. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in around us. I'm not him, I said finally. Her gaze lingered on me, searching, almost as if she were trying to convince herself of something. Then she nodded, more to herself than to me. No, you're not. The words should have settled me. Instead, they only pulled me deeper into something I didn't have a name for. She reached for a stack of papers, her fingers brushing mine. Barely, but enough to send heat racing up my arm. Stay a little longer, she murmured, eyes still on the bills. It helps, having someone here. My chest tightened. I wanted to answer, but the words caught in my throat. So I stayed, and her hand didn't move away. I kept telling myself I'd pull back. That sitting beside her that night was just helping, nothing more. But the truth was, I thought about her all the time. The way her hand brushed mine, how her voice dipped when she asked me to stay. It wasn't the kind of thing you could just ignore. A few nights later, I found her in the kitchen again. She was standing barefoot in her robe, staring at the kettle like she'd forgotten what she'd come in for. You're up late, I said softly. She jumped, hand to her chest. You scared me. Sorry. I leaned against the doorway, watching her. Her hair was loose tonight, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. Couldn't sleep. She gave a small shake of her head. Some nights are harder. I wanted to ask why. Instead, I stepped closer, pretending to reach for a glass. The distance between us shrank until I could feel the warmth of her body, smell the faint trace of jasmine again. You don't have to be alone, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes lifted to mine, lingering there longer than they should have. For a moment, the world outside the kitchen didn't exist. Just her and me, standing too close, with silence hanging heavy. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. The sound made both of us flinch. She glanced at the screen but didn't pick it up. Her lips tightened, and I saw something flicker in her expression. Regret, maybe even pain. Everything okay? I asked. She hesitated, then slid the phone face down. It can wait. The words should have been casual, but the way her voice caught on wait made my chest tighten. Do you ever? She started, then stopped, biting her lip. What? I pressed gently. Her gaze dropped to the floor. Forget what you're supposed to want, and just want what you shouldn't? My throat went dry. I wanted to say yes, wanted to tell her I thought about her every night. Instead, I laughed lightly, trying to play it off. All the time. She looked up then, and there was nothing playful in her eyes. Just raw honesty, like she'd let me see past a wall she kept for everyone else. I reached for the glass on the counter, but my hand brushed hers instead. Neither of us pulled back right away. Her breath hitched, soft but unmistakable. I was about to say something I couldn't take back, when a knock echoed from the front door. We both jumped, hands flying apart. She stared at me, wide-eyed, then whispered, "Don't say a word." I nodded, heart racing. The knock came again, sharper this time. Whoever it was, they didn't sound like they were going to leave. And all I could think was, if I took one more step, we'd cross a line we couldn't uncross. The knock at the door had been her sister. She kept the conversation short, standing half in the hallway so I wouldn't be seen. I waited in the kitchen, pretending to scroll my phone, heart pounding. By the time she came back, her robe pulled tighter and her smile forced. I knew she was only half present. Still, when she saw me, her shoulders lowered a fraction, as though relief came just from knowing I hadn't left. "You didn't have to wait," she said quietly. "Yeah," I muttered, setting the phone down. "I did." Her eyes flicked to mine, something unspoken sparking between us. She walked past, brushing close enough that the edge of her sleeve caught my arm. I swallowed hard. "Why didn't you tell her I was here?" She stopped, back half turned, and for a long time she didn't answer. Finally, she said, "Because she'd hear it in my voice." I frowned. "Hear what?" Her head tilted slightly, but she didn't turn. "That I don't know how to keep you at a distance." The air in the room thinned. I stood frozen, every excuse I'd practiced evaporating. She finally turned, eyes shining in the dim kitchen light. "You think I don't notice? The way you look at me? The way you linger?" My breath caught. "You don't exactly look away either." Her lips parted, as if to deny it, but she didn't. Instead, she stepped closer until the space between us was a single breath. "This is wrong," she whispered, though her voice trembled. I gave a shaky laugh. "If it's so wrong, why can't either of us stop?" The silence that followed was brutal. She searched my face like she wanted to memorize it, or convince herself she wouldn't. "I don't want to hurt you," she said finally. "You couldn't," I replied before I thought better of it. And it was true. She could break me in half and I'd still be standing here, waiting. Her hand lifted slightly, as if she meant to touch my face. At the last second, she pulled back, fingers curling against her palm. "I can't," she murmured. "But I want to." The words hit harder than any touch. I felt my chest tighten, heat coiling low in my stomach. I stepped forward, close enough now that I could feel her breath. For a heartbeat, we just stared, suspended on the edge of something that could change everything. Neither of us moved. Neither of us blinked. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, "Do you want me to stop?" The question hung between us, sharp and heavy, demanding an answer. Her question hung in the air. "Do you want me to stop?" I opened my mouth. Then a sharp chime cut through the silence. Her phone, vibrating insistently on the counter. She flinched, glancing at it like it might detonate. I expected her to ignore it again. Instead, she snatched it up, thumb trembling as she read the screen. Her face drained of color. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't answer, just set the phone down face up, as though her hands couldn't bear to hold it any longer. I read the name before she could turn it over. The word slammed into me. My father. Her ex. The call stopped. We stood in the thick silence it left behind. She finally spoke, voice rough. "He doesn't usually call this late." I tried to steady my breathing. "You could answer." Her eyes flicked to me. "And say what?" "That his son is standing in my kitchen at midnight, asking me why I don't look away." The heat between us shifted instantly, tangled now with something sharper. Guilt, fear, a history neither of us had said aloud until now. "You still talk to him?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Sometimes." She rubbed her temple, avoiding my eyes. "It's complicated." Complicated. The word I hated most. "He doesn't get to decide this," I said, surprising myself with the edge in my tone. She finally looked at me, eyes flashing. "Doesn't he? You think he wouldn't blame me? You think I don't already feel?" She stopped, pressing her lips together hard, like the word itself might burn her if it escaped. "Feel what?" I pushed. Her silence was the answer. I stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough to see the fine tremor in her jaw. "Tell me." She shook her head, whispering, "I already ruined one life. I can't ruin yours." My chest tightened. I thought of all the times I'd seen her stare out the window too long, all the nights she sat alone with her tea going cold. She carried regret like a shadow, and now I knew why. It wasn't just about me. It was about him. "You're not ruining anything," I said, softer this time. "I'm not him." Her eyes closed for a long moment, and when she opened them, there was a wet shine she didn't bother to hide. Before either of us could say more, the phone lit up again, buzzing across the counter. We both stared at it. She didn't move to answer. Neither did I. Finally, she whispered, "If you stay, there's no going back." The phone buzzed again, and my pulse matched it, beat for beat. The phone finally went quiet, the kitchen sinking back into that unbearable silence. Her eyes stayed fixed on it, like if she stared long enough, she could erase what it meant. I broke first. "Say it," I whispered. Her head jerked up. "Say what?" "That you want me to go. That this is a mistake." My chest ached as I said it, but I needed the truth, even if it gutted me. Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked at me like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, and I was the drop. I stepped closer, my hand brushing the counter beside hers. "Not touching, not yet. If you don't want this, tell me to leave." She closed her eyes, whispering, "I can't." "Can't what?" Her eyes opened again, glistening. "Can't lie to you." That was all it took. My hand found hers, warm and trembling, and she didn't pull away. "This is wrong," she breathed, even as her fingers tightened around mine. "I don't care," I said, my voice low, rough. "I can't pretend anymore." The air between us broke then. She leaned in, so slowly I almost thought I imagined it, until her forehead rested against mine. We stayed like that, no kiss, no rush, just breathing each other in, the kind of closeness that spoke louder than anything we could say. Her voice cracked against my skin. "I don't want to regret you." "You won't?" I whispered back. "I promise." We stood suspended in that fragile space, both of us knowing we'd stepped over a line we could never uncross. But neither of us cared anymore. Then, with a soft, unsteady breath, she tilted her face and brushed her lips against mine. Barely there, just a touch, but it shattered everything I thought I could hold back. I kissed her back, gentle at first, like testing the edge of fire. She made a small sound, half relief, half fear, and pressed closer. When we finally pulled apart, her hand still in mine, she looked at me with something that felt dangerously close to hope. "What happens now?" she asked. I didn't have an answer. All I could do was squeeze her hand tighter and say, "We figure it out. Together." The phone lit up again across the counter, my father's name glowing on the screen. This time, neither of us even looked at it. We just stood there, holding on, while the world on the other side of that call tried to drag us back. I thought the hardest part would be crossing the line. I was wrong. The hardest part was what came after. Sitting there in the kitchen, her hands still in mine, knowing the world would look at us differently if they knew. She broke the silence first. "I used to think regret was something you could outgrow, that if you carried it long enough, it got lighter." Her thumb brushed my hand absently, like she wasn't even aware of the touch. "But it doesn't. It just finds new ways to haunt you." I watched her closely, the weight in her eyes more honest than anything she'd ever said to me before. "Do you regret this?" Her answer came quick, firm. "No," then softer. "Not yet." That was enough for me. The next morning, nothing looked different, but everything felt changed. She poured her coffee, I buttered toast, and our shoulders brushed when we moved past each other. No one watching would have noticed, but I felt it. Every glance, every half-smile she couldn't quite hide. The phone calls didn't stop. He left messages. Sometimes I'd hear her listening in the other room, her silence saying more than words ever could. She never let me hear them, and I never asked. One evening, as rain pattered against the windows, I found her sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. I sat beside her, and after a long pause, she said, "I don't know if we'll be forgiven. Maybe not by him. Maybe not by anyone." I reached over, lacing my fingers through hers. "Then maybe we stop asking for it." She looked at me, startled, like the thought had never occurred to her. And then she laughed, quiet but real. "You're too young to sound that certain." "Maybe," I said, "but I know this. I'd rather live with what we've done than regret what we didn't." For the first time, she leaned into me without hesitation. No secrecy, no holding back. Just a choice. Our choice. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Regret doesn't vanish. But love, real, terrifying, impossible love, can make the weight worth carrying. So we stayed there, listening to the rain, not caring who might call next, not caring what tomorrow demanded. For once, we weren't haunted. We were here, together,